Growing up, the Dreamcast wasn't just a gaming console in my house, it was the centerpiece of neighborhood gatherings. While other kids were obsessed with their PlayStations and Nintendos, and don't get me wrong, I was too, I was also the one kid who actually had a Sega Dreamcast. Thus, my living room became a hotspot for playing awesome games that nobody else could play otherwise. Friends would come over just to play Sonic Adventure 2, and we'd battle it out for hours in the two-player versus mode to see who would come out on top as the ultimate victor. However, there would be a catch. Whoever was player 2, usually the winner of the previous match, in order to make it fair, had to humble themselves by using a bizarre-looking fishing controller, since it was the only second controller I had at the time. But it was such a shame, the Dreamcast controllers were so cool and unlike anything else at the time. I mean, just look at this bad boy. I really felt like I was robbing my friends of an entire experience when they used the fishing controller, because aside from being extremely awkward to use, they were missing out on one of the coolest and most innovative features of the entire console, its memory card, or VMU. But the VMU wasn't just a memory card, it was a total game changer, literally. And I don't think any other game utilized them as creatively as the Dreamcast era of Sonic games. So what's so special about the VMU, and how did Sonic utilize it to enhance its own games? Welcome to chaomix, and today we'll be taking a deep dive into everything that Sonic did with the VMU during the Dreamcast era. This video is made possible by today's sponsor, BetterHelp. Now, much like the virtual pets we very much love taking care of, it's important to also look in the mirror and realize that that person also needs to be taking care of themselves. Mental health is extremely important, and I truly believe in the power of professional help when times are tough. Think of it this way: when a child is neglected, it becomes sad and can't thrive like it should. But when you begin nurturing it, providing it with attention and care, you see it grow happier and healthier right before your very eyes. We as people honestly aren't so different. And that's exactly where BetterHelp comes into play. BetterHelp is an easy and convenient way to connect with a licensed therapist. They start by offering a platform where you can answer a few questions and get matched with a professional who has experience in dealing with situations just like yours. You can communicate through phone calls, video chats, or messaging, whatever's most comfortable for you. One thing I really appreciate about BetterHelp is how quickly they work to connect you with a therapist, usually within 48 hours, allowing you to get started as soon as possible. Your mental health is important, so don't keep putting it off. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you in the comfort of your own home. So use the link in my description or go to betterhelp.com/chaomix. Huge thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video, and with all that being said, let's continue with today's episode. The VMU, or Visual Memory Unit, was Sega's innovative twist on the conventional memory card. Because while other consoles had memory cards, Sega took it further than anyone else thought possible. The VMU was truly on a different level. Yes, it served as a memory card for your Sega Dreamcast, allowing you to save your game data. But unlike your typical memory card, the VMU had its own LCD screen, enabling it to display various game-related information directly on the device while slotted into the Dreamcast controller. But the innovation doesn't stop there, because the VMU doubled as a standalone miniature gaming device. This dual functionality transformed what was once thought to be a mundane device used to simply save your data into a fully interactive accessories that could enhance your gameplay, not only while playing, but also even on the go, completely away from the console. Because the VMU operated on two 3-volt batteries, so it had power even when unplugged from the controller. Not only that, but when you unplug the memory card from the controller, it would reveal the D-pad and buttons used to control the device, allowing users to navigate the menus and manage their save data. But more importantly, playing the aforementioned minigames. So how did Sonic utilize the VMU both in-game and outside of the game? Well, let's go through each Sonic Dreamcast title one by one and see what this bad boy could really do. Sonic Adventure, being a launch title for the Dreamcast and the flagship mascot of Sega's entire company, had some significant expectations to meet in order to prove the capabilities of the new console. A lot of eyes were on this game to show what Sega's new console could really do, especially after the disastrous lifespan of their previous console, the Sega Saturn. So because of this, Sonic Adventure had to be an extremely ambitious game. It would feature not only Sonic, but several playable friend and side characters, each with their own playstyle, lightly showcasing various genres. It was Sega's way of saying, hey, look how many cool things our system can do. So not only was the game a platformer, it also featured on-rail shooting gameplay similar to something like Star Fox, third-person shooting with E102 Gamma's levels, fishing levels with Big the Cat, and the Chao Garden, an extremely intricate minigame where you could raise and nurture your very own adorable virtual pet. I think Sega knew that Chao would be a hit because not only did they put a ton of resources into this silly little minigame, they also designed a lot of the VMU interactivity around the Chao. After all, the VMU would have to be just as ambitious as the rest of the game. It was a pretty big selling point of their console. So how did Sonic Adventure utilize the VMU? For starters, like most other Dreamcast games, the VMU is often used to show off the logo for the game, which can be seen here right in the main menus. A cute little touch. Here we can take a closer look at the VMU's LCD screen. It has an insanely tiny resolution, coming in at only 48 by 32 pixels. You may also notice it's in black and white, a true 1-bit gaming experience, which is honestly kinda cool. But don't for a minute think that these limitations hold it back from having some really nice and expressive sprite art. If we head into gameplay, we can see the VMU cycle through sprite art portraits during the game's cutscenes of all our playable characters, and even Eggman. Most of the art is based off of the character key art drawn by Yuji Uekawa, the artist for the Sonic Adventure series. We can see sprite recreations of Tails, Knuckles, Amy, and E102. But some of these characters have sprite art portraits that I don't seem to recognize from anywhere else, so that means it must have been completely custom made. But honestly, they did a surprisingly impressive job with the 1-bit low-resolution sprite art limitations. I love how they all look. Anyways, it's during actual gameplay where things finally start to get a bit more interactive. When in the various hub worlds and levels, controlling your character has a lively little Chao inside of the VMU, mirroring and reacting to your actions. Obviously, he has this little walk cycle when the player is moving or stationary, but anytime the player leaves the ground, we can see him frantically stumbling in the air with a horrified little expression. Poor guy. Occasionally, the Chao can randomly trip. At least as far as I can tell, there isn't anything specific that causes this, it seems to be pure chance. He's just a klutzy little guy. When Sonic revs up his spin dash, we can see the Chao doing one of two things, either winding up a punch or kicking some kind of sack? I'm not really sure what this is, but he's sure showing it who's boss. The Chao can also occasionally swing and miss when punching, causing him to stumble. Again, a klutzy little guy. He can't help it. If you leave the game idle for a minute or so, the Chao will actually doze off and we can see him catching some Z's until he's awoken by the player finally moving. Also, I got this once and it took forever to figure out how to do it again, but I guess if you jump up as Sonic, land in this pose, and wait for a little bit, the Chao starts playing on a beach ball. If we head into an actual level, we can get a few more funny interactions. It seems that whenever the player enters the near vicinity of an enemy or collectible, such as a shield or a bundle of rings in an item capsule, the Chao will fall on its ass in awe, completely dumbfounded by the marvels of life. He is full of joyous whimsy and wonder. If you manage to get hit by something, the Chao will stagger back with X's over his eyes. No longer is he full of joyous whimsy and wonder. And whenever a character clears a level, we can see the Chao cheering for joy. It makes you feel good, it's like having your own personal cheerleader. Now, if we head to the Chao Garden, we can see one more fun little interaction. If we wait a second, we can see a Chao bashfully peek out from the bottom of our VMU, as if it can't believe we actually came back from the gas station with milk. He'll kinda just poke out at different points and shimmy back and forth at the bottom of the screen, watching your every move with his cold, dead eyes. He knows what you've done. But yeah, that's pretty much everything the VMU displays when playing Sonic Adventure 1. Compared to most other Dreamcast titles, the Chao VMU Companion was a charming and lighthearted form of interactivity meant to keep you entertained and provide some nice companionship while you played the game. It probably was also meant to serve as a reminder to go to your gardens and take care of those little guys. They're probably neglected and starved. Wait around any longer and you're probably gonna get the Chao Protective Services called on you. Just saying. Anyways, that wasn't all this game had to offer for VMU interactivity. Oh no, my good friend. Like I said, Sonic Adventure needed to go above and beyond to sell the Dreamcast. This led Sonic Team to develop an entire minigame playable on your VMU called Chao Adventure. In any of the Chao Gardens, you can pick up your Chao and drop them off into this device with a giant VMU on it. This strange looking device will transfer your selected Chao straight from your game into your memory card. And from here, we can remove the VMU and embark on an entire adventure on the go. Welcome to Chao Adventure, an entire minigame extension of the Chao raising experience, all playable on your VMU. In Chao Adventure, we travel across various maps with our Chao in order to raise its stats and even gain exclusive items. One cool thing we're able to do here is actually see our Chao stats, because unlike the GameCube versions of Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, we actually have no way to do that otherwise. Chao Adventure is basically the hyperbolic time chamber of the Chao Garden, because not only can we level up our Chao stats pretty quickly here, but this is also all done without aging the Chao, something you otherwise might need to be careful of in the main game since Chao have actual life cycles. The gameplay of Chao Adventure is pretty simple. It's mostly automated, as we have our Chao walking down a path as he attempts to make his way to the next area. Each area specializes in a certain stat, and the higher that stat, the faster you can get through. Anytime the Chao is walking, it uses the run stat. If they're swimming, it uses the swim stat, climbing uses the power stat, and flying uses the fly stat. When the Chao travels a certain amount of distance and makes it to the end of the area, they ask the player which direction to take next. We can see here on this map that the areas keep branching out and that there are 5 total layers. It kinda reminds me of the multiple paths from Shadow the Hedgehog. In total, there are 15 possible areas you can travel to, and depending on the route you choose, you'll have the chance to meet up with a special character who will give you a stat boost. I eventually met up with Sonic, so naturally he gave me a boost to my run stat. During your stroll, you'll eventually encounter Bully Chao, who challenge you to fights. You'll need to time an A press on this white colored block to land a punch, otherwise you'll miss and do no damage. I found the timing to be pretty deceiving. There's quite a bit of delay, so you'll want to press the A button probably 2 or 3 blocks before the white one. If you win, you'll get to choose from one of 3 treasure chests. They usually contain some type of food that increase various stats, but you can also get unlucky and get an empty chest or a lazy nut, which when the Chao eats, will have them get distracted by doing some kind of leisurely activity. You'll just need to press the A button whenever this happens to get them to continue their route. The Chao can also get distracted randomly by themselves even without the lazy nut, so you'll want to be on top of checking your screen to make sure they aren't distracted. Because one time my Chao won a battle and then went on to brag about how strong he was, only to immediately trip. Good job, buddy. You're doing great. Throughout your journey, your Chao will ask various questions. It's here where you can actually name your Chao. He'll also sometimes ask questions about the player. He'll want to know your name, your birthday, if you're a boy or a girl, and your phone number. Bro, is this guy trying to dox me? The Chao will even try to give you a quiz at certain points. Like in this one where he asked me how many Chaos Emeralds there were. Well, if you watched my video, you'd know that this number is actually pretty variable, but for the sake of convenience, we'll just put 7. There's also a matching minigame you can play to gain stat boosting items. It's actually really fun. It's pretty much a game of memory where you have to match pairs of each card. Fail 3 times though and you'll lose, so you'll have to make sure to memorize as many as you can when they're all flipped up at the beginning. This is probably the fastest way to level up your Chao, which is probably what you're going to want to do if you're looking to battle other players. See, the VMUs are able to slot into each other by joining at the top like some sort of combining mech or Gundam. I always thought this was the coolest thing ever. Too bad I didn't have any friends with a Dreamcast to do this with though. Anyways, if 2 players playing Chao Adventure connect, they're able to battle each other with the same karate gameplay as when fighting against the Bully Chao. Players can also mate their Chao when connected. I mean, what better way to celebrate after a tough one-on-one battle by, fucking. Very cool, Sega. Thank you. My Chao wasn't mature enough to do this apparently though. My VMU started yelling at me that the Chao was still a child. FBI, open up! But I'm assuming if you get 2 consenting adult Chao, they can create an egg. I'm not sure what determines who gets the egg though. Maybe both players get their own egg? I unfortunately didn't have the time to raise 2 Chao into adults to test this, so we may never know. Chao Adventure is pretty fun, although especially if you have a lower level Chao, getting through areas takes a hot second. A lot of this gameplay is actually spent just waiting for something to happen. You can go minutes without anything happening, and it can be easy to miss that your Chao is face planted in the gravel the entire time, waiting for you to press the A button to help it back up. But I think this game was designed to be played alongside Sonic Adventure as you do levels. By the time you'd be done with a level, your Chao would have something new to say or show you, and you'd be leveling them up while playing through the story. The ultimate multitasker strategy. But despite all of this, I think Chao Adventure 1 is a really charming minigame. It's definitely worth playing if you have the equipment to do so. It has a lot of soul and it's honestly worth it just for the hilarious dialogue alone in my opinion. Because whoever wrote this game's dialogue was a genius. The Dreamcast had a couple other titles besides just Sonic Adventure though. The next Sonic title on the Dreamcast utilizing the VMU would be Sonic Shuffle, a party game developed by Sega and Hudson Soft, the same people who made the Mario Party series. We've of course got the logo displayed on the VMU in the main menus, but in actual gameplay is where things get interesting. Sonic Shuffle has players traversing through board game-like maps, using cards to determine which spaces they can move to. The fun, or I suppose the not so fun part about this game, depending on how you look at it, is that players can all use each other's cards. However, using another player's cards is a gamble because normally you aren't able to see what cards are in their hand. That's because each player's hand is only visible on their VMU, making it so that only they know what cards they have. Yeah, no screen cheating around here. This is a super cool concept honestly, and if you really think about it, isn't this pretty much what the Wii U is doing 15 years later? Kinda crazy to think that some of these ideas were literally a decade and a half ahead of their time, but that's just the Dreamcast in a nutshell. That's all there really is though for Sonic Shuffle. It's a pretty self-contained, simple game, but this is still a really good use of the VMU if you ask me. Next up is Sonic Adventure 2. And as soon as you boot up the game, you're greeted with a cool little 1-bit Sega and Sonic Team logo. Yeah, I love that. We then get the logo for the game itself, which is pretty much all you're gonna see anytime outside of actual gameplay. During the gameplay, however, instead of cycling through the characters like in Sonic Adventure 1, the VMU strictly displays the character you're playing as. And we get some really nice sprite art of all the main playable characters. As good as the sprite art was for Sonic Adventure 1, I gotta say they somehow found a way to step it up. All the characters look super detailed even with a limited palette and resolution. We of course have Sonic, Shadow, Knuckles, Rouge, Tails, and Eggman. But if we jump over to the multiplayer mode, we can also see the sprite art for the other playable characters like Amy, Metal Sonic, Tikal, Chaos, Chao, and Big. But unfortunately, these cool portraits come at the cost of the silly interactive walking Chao from Sonic Adventure 1. It really does kinda suck, because I do feel like even though the sprite art is better in this game, its VMU gimmicks are noticeably less ambitious. Even in the Chao Garden, all we get are the static character portraits. No Chao creeping on you to see what you're doing. I kinda miss him, I'm not gonna lie. However, this game does have one more surprise to look into. Luckily, Chao Adventure has returned as Chao Adventure 2. So what are the changes? Well, similar to the first game, you're able to pick a Chao from your garden to transfer into your VMU. And from here, you can experience another portable journey with your Chao. Just like before, you're able to see your Chao stats here, because again, you actually aren't able to see them in-game like the GameCube ports allowed you to do. Here, we can see that Chao in Sonic Adventure 2 have 2 extra stats that we didn't have in the first game, luck and intelligence. And I believe that playing through this minigame is the only way to increase these stats. We also have a third new stat, Stamina, which was introduced in Sonic Adventure 2. Once again, Chao Adventure 2 has you taking a stroll through various maps with your Chao, but this time you're walking towards the screen rather than sideways. This is true gameplay evolution right here. But no, the biggest addition to Chao Adventure 2 is probably the overarching storylines. Each time you start, you'll get a different plot. There's actually quite a handful of them that change up each playthrough. And depending on your decisions, your route through Chao Adventure 2 will change, and different dialogue options and events will pop up. Your choices also change the course of the storyline, which in a way replaces the route system in Chao Adventure 1, where you simply got to choose which area to go to next. This game still has different areas to travel to though. I personally went to the hills, the forest, and the city on my first playthrough, all of which have some neat scrolling environmental sprite art. For this first playthrough, my Chao wanted to take pictures of things and would ask me questions like what he should take a picture of. We coincidentally ran into Knuckles, eating flowers, and took a picture of him during the act. Yep. This one is definitely going into the cringe compilation. Then we saw Omo Chao winding himself up and took one more picture for the cringe compilation. We also saw Amy fishing, but had to run away because my Chao was scared of her, I guess. My Chao also tried taking a bunch of pictures in the city, but only realized afterwards that he had no film. But I guess apparently it was for the best, because he didn't want to expose everyone's secrets. What? Huh? Again, during the journey, you'll encounter several bully Chao. The fighting is very similar to before, but you actually have more white blocks to land on, giving you a greater chance to land a hit. But just like the first game, you'll still want to be about 2 to 3 blocks early when pressing because of the delay. You also get to choose from 1 of 3 treasure chests, and I swear to God I had the worst luck because I kept picking the empty ones. Your Chao can also get distracted or stop progressing for whatever reason, in which case you can either pet them or scold them and they'll get right back on their way. We can also play games with our Chao in the form of slot machines. That's probably not good to teach kids. You're able to change how much you're willing to bet, which doesn't really seem to have any sort of effect from what I could tell. And the items you get from this don't really seem to actually raise your stats at all like they did in Chao Adventure 1. Honestly, I was actually pretty disappointed with this minigame, not only because of this, but also because it's basically pure luck rather than the skill it took to win at the memory minigame in Chao Adventure 1. Rolling the slots also just isn't as interactive. I had way more fun playing the matching minigame and testing my memory. Anyways, during your journey, your Chao will ask you questions about yourself like before, like your name, if you're a boy or a girl, your birthday, your blood type. What's this guy gonna do, steal my kidney in my sleep? He'll also occasionally tell you cool Chao facts, like how a freesia flower represents innocent love, or that a freesia flower represents innocent love. He would then tell me that a freesia flower represents innocent love, and that a freesia flower represents innocent love. I'm learning so much here, thank you. He was also almost about to tell me what a Chao flower represents, but then told me he couldn't tell me? Come on, you little shit. Anyways, you can't mate or battle with other players in Chao Adventure 2, at least as far as I could tell. I thought this would be a given, but apparently not. But any item you get from this game mode, you get to bring back to the Chao Garden. For instance, at the end of my quest, I got a seed. Very epic. Anyways, once you hit the goal at the end of your journey, you're sent to the beginning and can start a new storyline. While the plot aspect of Chao Adventure 2 is admittedly pretty cool and has some fun dialogue, I gotta say, the gameplay here is a bit of a downgrade from Chao Adventure 1. On top of it feeling like a less viable way to quickly level up your Chao because the food items don't seem to increase your stats, the minigames just aren't as fun. But don't get me wrong, it's still a really neat experience. I'd say as far as these 1-bit Tamagotchi virtual pet games go, it still has a lot to offer. The VMU was truly a marvel of its time, and there hasn't been anything like it since. For a short time, they tried to keep this innovation alive with the use of the Game Boy Link cable and certain Sonic Game Boy Advance titles. Each one usually had a tiny Chao Garden mode where you'd be able to raise and nurture a Chao in your Game Boy in between the levels of the main game. And with the Game Boy Advance Link cable, you were able to transfer this Chao into the GameCube ports of Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. But in many ways, this was still a bit less ambitious than Chao Adventure 1 and 2. Sure, there were a few extra mini-games and the graphics were way better, but it didn't have that same feeling of adventure that the VMU games had, since you couldn't really leave this garden area. And there's just such a wonderful tactile sensation that comes with slotting this bulky-ass memory card with a screen into your controller and transferring data in and out of it. I don't know, it's hard to replicate. Because the thing is, we could totally do this kind of thing with the technology we have on our phones, and it would probably be like 100% more convenient and advanced. But I guess not everyone was able to see the potential of what Sega was doing here with the VMU. Anyways, that's gonna be it for today's video. Slap that like button if you liked it, and subscribe for even more way past cool Sonic content such as this. In the comments below, let me know if you've ever even used a VMU before. Huge thank you to my amazing channel members, and with all that being said, I hope everyone has a fantastic day. Peace.